Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second installation of the Accountability Lab South Africa Meet the Icons series. Before we introduce you to the Meet the Icons series, let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Gqeberha Phamudi, and I'm the country director for the Accountability Lab in South Africa. We're very thrilled to introduce some really amazing people, amazing public servants, and community builders from the Eastern Cape and Ekurhuleni, respectively, who we will be talking with today and sharing with around the importance of care work and particularly social work in our society today. I'd like to first introduce the Meet the Icon series. Meet the Icon is an opportunity for us to meet some of our integrity icons. It forms part of our Integrity Icon campaign, which is a national campaign to name and fame excellent public servants. These are rank and file government workers who are really doing the most to build our communities and ensure the delivery of services to all of the people of South Africa as efficiently as possible, to the best quality that they can really push for right where they are. We run the Integrity Icon campaign as the Accountability Lab, mainly to do the work of lifting up local heroes, because it's local people. It's not us from an Accountability Lab who identify the integrity icons. It's local people in communities who see a public servant, because all of us know at least one public servant, but really most of us know many public servants who work in government for all of us, who are doing the best that they can and are actually going over and above the call of duty to deliver the best possible services to our people. And so this is our small contribution to remind all of ourselves, and to remind ourselves even, that it's really important to lift up our local heroes, name and fame them, and really model the kind of society that we want by pointing to the people who are putting in the work to build a better South Africa for all of us. And so Meet the Icon is really an opportunity for us to meet these icons. We will be today be introduced to our icons, who are Unathi Filita, who is a social worker working with the Eastern Cape Department of Social Development. He's based in Kariega, what was formerly called Uitenhage, in Kwa-Nobuhle, where he really just does amazing work. We also will be introduced to Vuyokazi Nkevu Langbooi, who is also a social worker with the Eastern Cape Department of Social Development. She's based in Gqeberha, formerly called Port Elizabeth, specifically in Ibhayi township, where she does really powerful work, where she runs a shelter and also does a lot of outreach work, as we will learn about, particularly with LGBTQ organizations, but certainly with a wide range of communities who need help, who need support in order to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and be reintegrated back into society, or to be supported to be the best that they can be, which is really the significance of social work in our society. We are also joined by Nandi Msezane. Nandi Msezane is a community worker and a gender justice activist, based in Ekurhuleni in the East Rand, or formerly known as the East Rand here in Gauteng province, where we are based as the Accountability Lab. She's done a lot of work through various gender justice initiatives, including working with the Sonke Gender Justice organization, working in the NSP, where we've been working towards a GBV framework, or at least there's been a whole of society response towards a national gender-based violence framework, or response framework rather. And she also, most importantly, runs together with her mum a shelter for displaced LGBTQ persons. These are people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and other gender diverse identities or social categories that exist in our society. And this is really important work because we know that we know the plight of queer people in our society, and we're doing the very best that we can, and we are all contributing in some way or other towards really improving the position of queer people. And we do that by meeting them right where they are, including through providing housing and shelter and support for us when we need it. But before we start with the Meet the Icon program for this evening, we'd really just like to start quickly by running through a video, just a 1-minute video, just to introduce you to the Meet the Icon and the Integrity Icon campaign. So please enjoy.
On the 26th of May, 2022, we will be live streaming our annual Meet the Icons dialogue series. This will enable Integrity Icons to share their story and what they've learned about what it takes to make government work for people. Through Meet the Icon, people, government workers, community activists, media, and researchers can learn from these public service heroes about what they are doing to build a capable state. In this installment of MTI, we intend to bring a focus on integrity icons in the social service system and the strategies they employ in supporting the communities they live and work in. Combining icons of 2020 and 2021, we will introduce Unathi Filita, a social worker in the busy town of Uitenhage in the Eastern Cape. We will also introduce Vuyokazi Nkevu Langbooi, a social worker in the township of Ibhayi in the Eastern Cape. The Meet the Icons dialogue will be live streamed on Zoom and Facebook.
Wonderful. So that just gives you a little flavor of what we'll be talking about today. And so without any further ado, I'd love to hand over to Nandi to take us through the program for today. Nandi, over to you.
Thank you, Sikutwane. Really appreciate the introduction you have made to set the scene for today. Thank you for everyone who is joining us on Facebook, everyone who is with us here on Zoom. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. Just a quick housekeeping. Please, when we do have questions and answer, please use the icon at the bottom of your Zoom page to raise your hand, and someone will recognize you and you will be enabled to speak. And then also just to let you know, Vuyokazi, who is one of the icons, is experiencing load shedding. We do know what the situation is in our country at the moment. So please, can we be patient with her as she tries to connect with us? But we will start the session talking to Unathi. Unathi, how would you describe the community in which you work? And can you just give us briefly the work that you do?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. As already said, that I'm working at Uitenhage, Kariega now, especially Kwa-Nobuhle. Kwa-Nobuhle is a township plus minus 10 kilometers away from town, which is Kariega. It's a large and fast-growing area. It consists of most of people that are employed. They depend on social grants and the income generating project that we normally give to the people. I'm not sure whether I'm still live or am I still live?
You are. You can carry on, Unathi.
They depend on social grants and income generating projects for survival. In the past, this community, it was the guaranteed job community because of the local companies like Volkswagen, Goodyear, Hella. However, since the influx of job seekers to town, it has become more difficult for people to get employment. That's the kind of community that I'm servicing here in Utenik, which is Kwa-Nobuhle area.
Thank you very much, Unathi. We would like to invite all our participants on social media, as well as in the Zoom room, to take part in the poll that is up. You should be able to see it on your screen, on your phone, and let us know just why you're interested in doing care work, as well as the other questions. We will give a minute for that, and then we will end the poll. So there's a timer that's on. As soon as it gets to, yeah. So we'll give it another minute, and then we will end the poll. So even with all the challenges, Vuyokazi has been able to connect with us all the way from Ibhayi in Gqeberha. Vuyokazi, can I ask you, as soon as the poll ends, to take us through just a background into your community and the work that you do?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Vuyokazi Nkevu Langbooi, also known as Vuvu, also known as Lolly Daniels on social media. I'm currently, apologies first, I'm currently in a car. We're trying to find a right spot for me to use for the webinar due to load shedding. I am a social worker by profession. I was born in Kariega, where Unathi is working, but currently I am working at Gqeberha at Ibhayi local service office. I've been a social worker all my life, if I can say, because I've been working since from high school in the helping process or in the caregiving work. I started first working as a facilitator for Youth for Christ, also for Scripture Union when I was still in high school. And I went on to Red Cross and till I found myself aligned to where I need to be in social work. During COVID, I was placed by the Department of Social Development at Dago All Homeless Shelter, where the department decided that in order to curb the spread of COVID-19, people from the streets should be taken in so that the spread of the virus can be curbed. Now, our biggest struggle at the shelter, in the beginning, there was no funding because remember, COVID came as a surprise. There was no budget for it, but people were already in the shelter. As a social worker, it was my obligation that I need to make sure that people are eating. People are eating at least 2 meals a day, because you cannot build trust with clients. You cannot start a relationship where you say you want to help them go back to their families or to find their way back to their community when you cannot feed their stomach. So that is the first thing that I had to do in the shelter. We were able to do that with the volunteers that were part of the shelter that came from Ward 21, that played a big role in assisting with the shelter. They started the shelter with me, supporting me, becoming part of I can call a management or type of team that I was working with in the shelter. In the shelter, first we had 54 clients that were part of the shelter. As time progressed, we had about 44 that were reunified with their families, and we had 10 that reintegrated to society because they had found jobs as EPWPs. Some had skills. People would come in and say, I need someone who can do plumbing for me. I need someone who can come to Swarkop's hotel and assist with being a maintenance guy. So those are people that were taken from the shelter to start their work. Some even went back as far as Mozambique and Zimbabwe, where they returned home. So the shelter had worked and had made progress. I also work with organizations. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I catch you just
I talk a
briefly?
lot, so you must just say to me, Vuyo. Okay. I also work within the LGBTI community. I call myself a human rights activist because you cannot be a social worker and not be able to advocate for people's rights. You cannot be a social worker and not be able to speak for those who are voiceless and those who are discriminated against. I work with an organization called Gqeberha Social Inclusion, who works in the different schools in the Nelson Mandela, teaching kids on inclusion and diversity, also on the definition on what is LGBTI and how to become an ally. We had also assisted them to be able to go out and be able to mentor the children to become ambassadors for human rights. So we do a lot of work in the Nelson Mandela with the LGBTI communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vuyo, for just setting the scene for the amazing, amazing work and important work that you do. Both our speakers work in under-resourced areas. They are doing extremely important work. Please, can you, and this work comes with its own set of challenges. What are some of the factors that cause displacement for the young people in particular in your community, Vuyo? And can I just ask you to just brief, what are some of the top 3 or 4 things that cause displacement?
The top 3 things are: 1, conflict with families. Families normally, once the biological mother passes on and you are left with extended family, I'm making an example, you find that the extended family can no longer be able to look after you. Many excuses are made by families, and you find that people rather decide that I cannot live in a household like this where I am ill-treated. I'd rather go live on the streets. The second reason you'll find is substance abuse. The Nelson Mandela has the largest number of people that are using drugs. Each and every day, numbers of children and youth that are using drugs are rising, especially dick and cocaine in the Nelson Mandela. The third one will be dysfunctional families. When I speak of dysfunctional families, I mean families where domestic violence and gender-based violence are at a rise. You'll find that most of the people cannot cope with the situations at home, or due to that of sexuality of the person, because some families don't want to accept the children choices in terms of sexual orientation. So they will rather run to the streets where they are accepted. Those are the major 3 reasons that one can find in our communities.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Vuyo. Now, Unathi, I'm coming back to you. We know that poverty and inequality are prevalent in most communities, in townships and rural areas. How have you managed to counter these challenges in your community through partnerships with multiple stakeholders? I'm sure you also have, similar challenges that Vuyo has brought up. If you can also touch on that briefly.
Thank you so much for the question. Poverty and inequality are very high in the community that I am serving, which is Kwa-Nobuhle. The community that has a high rate of unemployment, high rate of poverty, a community that is closer to be declared as poor of the poor community within the area. The high rate of unemployment, especially amongst young people, is escalating every day. Educated and not educated is the same. When you find young people in the corners of the streets, within the taverns, the shops. When you interview them, some of them they are educated, but the problem, they are not finding employment. What we normally do, we call all the stakeholders that we see that they are relevant to assist these young people, and that it assists us a lot because, one, we avoid or we eliminate the duplication of services. We know if we sit down, we know that if the Department of Labor, what are you offering? Department of Social Development, what are you offering? The businesses, what are you offering for young people? Then at least we know that we have a pool of services to these young people, rather than being alone, giving services to these people alone. Just to cooperate, to do it together, at least it makes a huge difference. We sit to different stakeholders and brainstorm what needs to be done. Set up a committee that drives strategies to deal with these challenges. We know that there is this committee that is responsible to see what are the challenges. What is it that we can do to assist these young people within the community? So that, because what I believe in is, at least if we can get one person within their household who is working, at least that can make a difference, and it can better the lives of that community together with that specific household. What we normally do with the programs, we empower women and youth to create opportunities that will benefit them. Remember, sometimes the women and youth are marginalized more than the other gender. Then what we do, we empower, because we can give them what, but if they are not empowered, there's nothing that they can do. The first thing that we do, we empower the women and youth, and we're able to create opportunities for them that will better their lives. We encourage community members to gather. We know that the high rate of employment is escalating every day. What we do, we encourage them to gather themselves as group and set up cooperatives, set up NPOs. Then we assist them to build those NPOs. We capacitate them. We assist them with business plan so that they can own their businesses. At least they can bring something at home, and at least they eliminate the poverty within their families. That's the program that we normally do. We encourage them that now that there's no work, what is it that you can do? We follow suit on that slogan, that Vuyokazi Nkevu. Then we assist them, because we ask them about what is it that you are interested to that can bring income for you. Then we assist the client on that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Unathi, you have anticipated my next question, but can you expand just a little bit, not too much, just because we do have time as a factor. How do lack of skills impact the socioeconomic issues faced by the people living in Kwa-Nobuhle? And what opportunities, like, yes, you have said that you're encouraging cooperatives as well as NPOs. Are there any other opportunities that you are looking at in terms of, I mean, we have things like the YES program and other programs which integrate with more corporates, like getting people into work in the corporate sector. What are some of the opportunities that you are introducing as the Department of Social Work, the Department of Social Development, to the people living in Kwa-Nobuhle?
Thank you so much. The lack of skills, it has a negative impact, especially towards our young people in the community. As much as we know that is the same around the globe, where we identify that the young people, they acquire skills need for today, but they are not able to contribute to the market. They are unemployable. What normally happens is that most of these young people, they go to these courses, that are overpopulated, and as a result, they are not employable, because if you go to this site, now this course is overpopulated. We have so many, but there are other courses that we can encourage young people to go to, which they can assist them to get work after. They impact negative in this way, because in our community, they feel like tied up because there's nothing that they do. It is important as for us as stakeholders to come together and try to fight that, so that our young people can get work opportunities. As a department, what we normally do, we try our best level to assist these young people so that they can get opportunities and better their lives. What we engage with businesses around and try to find available opportunity to young people, because sometimes we need to do a need assessment. We need to go to these businesses, we need to go to these platforms where we ask them, what is it that you need? So that if we take these young people to these incubators, we know exactly what is needed outside there. We have partnered with Harambe as a youth initiative where young people are prepared for work opportunities and placed to different companies. We have partnered with CIS Skills Program Incubator for young people who are able and living with disability. We have this income generating project within the communities where we gather these young people to be busy doing something with them. That's what we normally, we currently do as a department in collaboration with the other stakeholders who are relevant, so that we can be able to provide opportunities for these young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Unathi. I mean, just listening to Unathi, it makes me think about, how difficult it is to find opportunities, but at the same time, when we do work together as in a multi-stakeholder environment, then we're able to achieve so much more. Traveling together makes the load lighter. Vuyokazi, what has been your experience of the resilience of especially the young people in under-resourced communities? What are some of the tools that they share with you that allow them to show up day after day despite difficult circumstances?
First, I would say, one is to take ownership of your life. This is one of the things that the young people would share with me when sharing their stories. One, you must be able to take ownership of your life, being able to identify what it is that I want to achieve for my life and what steps that I should take in order for me to achieve what I need to achieve for my life. So I think when one is able to link themselves to the resources of the community that are available in terms of using the social workers and the CDWs, the community development workers, they're able to share and find resources within their communities. Most of the young people, especially the ones, I'll speak about the ones that are at the shelter, especially those who were using drugs. Many of them have seen what drugs have done to their lives and what they have lost in their life, especially when you see people that are at the same age as you are and what you were supposed to have achieved by this time in your life. Then when that reality kicks in, that's when then a person makes a decision, a conscious decision that says, this, I need to change my life, and this is what I want for my life. As social development, we want to teach people to be able to be self-reliant, not depend on the welfare society that is created by most people, because you'll find people, what they want is to find what government grant that I can get in order to better my life. But one is can say, what can I get from government in terms of bursaries and other things that can better my life in order for me to sustain my life?
I think we've lost Vuyo for a minute there. As Vuyo works to come back to us. Unathi, can I come to you and ask, you have worked with communities for over a decade and a half. So much has changed in that time. Can you tell us a little bit about the programs that you have led in your community to address the high unemployment rate and what has been the impact? If you can share with us like 3 or 4 of the programs that you have led and what impact you feel that they have had.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been busy with the young people within the community. Sometimes what I believe, when you sit down with these young people, they will tell you that the problem with the government, they decide things for us. They tell us what need to be done without asking us, but what is it that you need, so that we can get information from them. Then young people, they are so...
Sorry to interrupt you. We've lost your video. Please, can you check that your video is on?
Sorry about that. Is okay?
Yes, we have you back. Thank you.
Okay. I'm saying that then when you ask them, what is it that you want? One, if it comes from them, any program will be sustainable, because remember that they will take ownership of it. Whatever project that we come up, we go to them that, what is it that you are interested of doing? We have these programs that we have funding for this program. What is it that you are interested to do? We give them funding so that they are able to create employment for them. There are programs that we've been involved with them. The Harame program is continuing. Remember that in, I think, 2018, 2019, we were busy with that 150 young people that we were placed in VW. Then after them, then the other young people were taken. That one, it's a continuous thing. But even after without that one, but we are trying by all means to find something so that we know that at least the rate of unemployment is not as much as high as it is now. Because what we trying to do that each and every household, there must be someone who is working. We have been partnered with number of organizations. We know that they are able to find employment for these young people. They are incubators where they train these young people for the work opportunity, so that when one of the companies said that they want 100 young people who are able to do this, those young people, they are already trained. Because remember that I told that we go and maybe to go to Volkswagen, we sit down with them. What is it that you are in need of? So that the incubator program is exactly according to what the company need, so that when they say that they need the number of these young people, we know that they are able to do the work because they have been trained for the work. It's very easy for the company to say that we want this because we did the assessment, we did the need analysis. Then they are able to fit in to the work employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Unathi. Connected to what you were talking about, you were mentioning companies like VW. What are some of the skills that you believe are needed by young people to prepare them for the world of work?
Thank you. As I said that first, before we can say that there's opportunity for young people, what we do the need analysis, we do the assessment, we go to the company. If we go to VW, that we ask them, what is it, if an opportunity comes for young people, what is it that you need them for? So that we are able to say that, okay, Harame, in partnership with social development, this is the company will need young people, 100 young people with this kind of a skill. Then what we do, we incubate them, we put them in an incubator program toward that skill that is needed. First, it's important to find out what skill the company needs, so that when you train these young people, you train them to something that is needed, not something that is overpopulated, that they are not going to get employment. But because the aim that we have is for these young people to get employment. You understand? And it is very, very, very important for us that we go according to that. We train them according to the skill that is needed by a certain company, so that when are done with the incubator program, they are able to go and be able to go and work to the company. You understand that the skills that is needed depend to the company, depend to a different company. That's why first, before we train them, we go to a company to do a need analysis and a assessment to the certain company. If it's good here, we go and do that to this company around, even the ones that in Gqeberha.
Thank you, Unathi. I mean, I think it's amazing, and that you do take the time. There isn't assumptions being made about what is, you know, what young people should be doing and what will enable them to get work once they have been put into incubator programs, which is sometimes the challenge in different communities around South Africa. I think the multi-stakeholder approach that you use is an amazing one. Vuyo, back to you again. Hopefully we have you back now. My question just before we lost you was around some of the challenges and how you create enabling spaces given the challenges faced from a cultural, religious, and traditional perspective. And how you create space for LGBT young people.
How we create spaces for young people is, first, we have a non-judgmental environment. We create a non-judgmental environment because most of the young people come from families that are not welcoming to the LGBTI community, who don't even want to hear about a child being gay. That's why it's important as a social worker, you create a non-judgmental environment. Secondly, it's important to sensitize your colleagues, because you'll find some social workers will let you know, say, I don't know what must I say, how should I address in terms of pronouns of the gay community, of the LGBTI community. Then it's important as a social worker, you are sensitized, and able to ask the right question without being prejudiced to the next person. So in most of our sessions, we always say that confidentiality is guaranteed. We should make this, no one will be judged because of who they are. You need to choose who you want to be, how you want to represent yourself, in order for you to feel comfortable to share in most of our support sessions when we have them. So that's how mostly we create these safe spaces, because we already know that most of the young people are coming from homes that already they've been judged so many times, already they feel helpless, because already they've lost hope in terms of who is willing to listen to them, and where can they share and become free to who they want to be. Thank you.
Thanks. Vuyo, I'm going to stay with you for a minute. And this question also touches home, because as I was introduced, I also run a shelter in Ekurhuleni. How, so when you bring people together in one space because of multiple psychosocial challenges that have caused their displacement or homelessness, requiring them to live in a shelter, what are some of the systemic and relational tools that you have in place to manage relationships in the shelter and ensure that the shelter has an overall smooth running culture?
In our shelter, first, the shelter was not conducive for LGBTI community. But as a social worker working in that space, I had to make it conducive to the LGBTI community because we had 2 trans women that were part of the shelter and 1 gay man that was part of the shelter. So we had to then divide the shelter into different spaces where we had a space for women, we had a space for young men and older person. Now, the trans women were part of the space where women were so-called heterosexuals were in, because we wanted people to know that we don't judge people due to their sexual orientation. And what I made was that I had called upon Gqeberha social inclusion to come into the shelter and do a sensitization for the whole members of the shelter, including the volunteers, because it's important that the people that you work with in the shelter, especially the volunteers, are sensitized, because sensitization comes a long way. It helps with stereotyping. It helps with for people to be able to know what to say and how to say it, because language is one of the biggest tools that you can use to kill a person emotionally. So once sensitization was done and people were given an opportunity to sleep where they wanted and where they felt comfortable sleeping, then that has helped us a lot. So in the shelter, because the shelter is in the location, not only LGBTI persons were there, even people of color. I mean, white people were part of the shelter in the deepest location in the Nelson Mandela. So it had helped to see that there's diversity in sexual orientation, in color, and then it had made the shelter to be a conducive environment for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question goes to both our icons, and you can choose. I think, Unathi, maybe you can go first. What are the challenges that you experience in your work as social workers? And what keeps you motivated to continue doing this work? And what kind of support do social workers in the field need from their communities? I think, you guys do such phenomenal work. And what keeps you here after so many years?
Thank you. The first, let me go to the challenges. The challenges, one is the resources, lack of resource within the department. If I can make an example, we are about plus minus 50 social workers in the office, but we have only 2 cars. We are about 5 sections, 6 with the management, we have 6 sections. Then when you want to go and do the visit, there's no car. But because you are passionate about the work that you are doing, number 2, the client that you are servicing, sometimes you cannot make stories because, one, you think of your professionalism if you keep on saying that I don't have a car to come and visit you. We ended up sometimes using our own cars, because what is in our mind that, what about the client that needs services? Because remember that before the client comes to your office, it's a struggle, because maybe the client was raped, maybe the client is under domestic violence. It's not easy to go and divulge information to somebody that you don't even know. It takes guts for that. That's why when the client comes to your office, you need to respect the client. You need to go beyond the call of duty to assist the client, regardless of the resources that we do not have within the department. But because you are safeguarding the profession, you make sure that the client is served, and you put the client first. That's what the Batopeda said, that put the client first. Then the other nitty-gritty things within the office will follow. But if first you need to serve the client. What makes me to be here even now is the love of the profession that I chose. I love social work. There's no other profession that I would like to go to or like to choose. Social work, I'm social work is me. I love social work, and I love to help a client. I love to see the client that I assisted standing on his or their own. You know, sometimes you work with so many people that you don't even sometimes recognize their names. But when you sometimes go to maybe going to town, you meet people, and when they greet you, sometimes you forgot. They remind you that I'm your client. Remember that when I came to you, I had a problem with my child. My child is in university, or my child graduated. That's when you see that I have played my role. I have made an impact in the life of the client. Then you feel so proud that at least amongst the community, there's this one person that at least I have assisted. That's what makes me to still be a social worker even today. And I love and I have passion for the work that I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Unathi. Vuyo, same question.
I think Unathi has covered the majority of the challenges, but our biggest challenge to where I'm at right now is crime, the hijackings that happen in our area. Recently, we had social workers that were hijacked, and they were gun pointed at, and their stuff were taken from them. As people who love our community and want to serve our community fearlessly, we feel scared to go and do home visits due to us being afraid of being hijacked, even robbed of our belongings. Because we know we won't have EAP, you'll be told that you have a medical aid, go find a psychologist for yourself. Those is one of the biggest challenges. My second challenge that I have noted is that the lack of shelters in the Nelson Mandela has shown us during COVID that there's a bigger need that needs to be done by government by providing shelters that are gender inclusive of all genders. The shelter that I was in now has closed because we were able to really find those who were residents. But now, when you look now, it's winter time. How many people are displaced, who are homeless, who don't have a space to go? Due to that, the shelter was a temporary place. Now, government has not yet identified a permanent space for the displaced. So my wish is that government can be able to have a permanent place for those who are displaced, because not every homeless person is someone using drugs or running away from home, not because they don't want to be under their parents' guidance or something. The last challenge that we have is that we are understaffed. We have lots of social work graduates who are unemployed. Each and every day, social ills are continue to be the biggest problem in South Africa. As the recent cases of domestic violence, the recent cases of Namhla case of murder, how many women have been killed by their partners, and we cannot reach as many that we want to reach as social workers, because the number of those are employed, it's very few social workers. I wish government can have social workers in the schools. If government can have social workers, each and every government department have a social worker that is placed there, so that no one becomes left in the cracks due to non-availability of social services. So what has kept me to continue doing the work that I love so much? It's because I was once also helped by a social worker. I've seen the love the social worker has for people, and and the pleasure of knowing that I've done good. Because when I was at the shelter, I was able to see the impact of my work, because we are able to monitor the change from the first time the person got into the shelter until the time the person goes back home. And when you get the reports from the families to say to you that, thank you, social worker, we can see the difference. The person is no longer stealing from us, selling our personal belongings. The person has found a job now. These are the things that keep us going and continuing to going beyond the call of duty. Thank you.
Thank you, Vuyo. Unathi, you've spoken so much about what you and your department are doing and how you're integrating your work with business. What do you believe both government and business can do even more to alleviate unemployment, because we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the world? And how do we create a skilled workforce who's able to contribute to the transformation of our communities?
Thank you. I think, as I have said before, I think the important thing that the government need to do together with the business is to call the young people and ask them. You know, sometimes when you need solution, even as a social workers, that's what we do. We don't give solution to the clients, but we sit down with the client, then we ask, what will be the solution? Then we evaluate each and every solution that the client comes with. What are the pros and cons of each and every, until we come to a solution that will fit the challenge the client comes with. At the end of the day, so that they know that the solution never came from the social worker, but the social worker assisted me to come to the solution. I think what needs to be done is to call young people. Now that we have the high rate of unemployment, what do you think can assist you to have an income, rather than doing the handouts that we are doing as a government, because the government is busy with handouts? That's not a solution. We need a permanent solution where we see the rate of unemployment decreasing, not escalating the way it is escalating now. I think the solution is within the young people that are unemployed, but they need to be channeled to a right place. They need to sit down with the government and tell them that we are innovative, we are young, we know what we can do. Give us a chance to do those things, that we are innovative, because they can use their hands, but what they need the boost from the government. This is what we can do. What is it the government that can do? This is what we can provide, so that you can take what you do further, so that it can sustain you and make your life better. Thank you.
Thank you. Vuyo, working with LGBT community, what are some of the ways in which you have tapped into existing support systems to ensure that service users from the LGBT community are able to be serviced in spite of how they present and the biases that service providers assisting them have? And what shifts have you seen? I mean, you just spoke about briefly about how you started sensitization workshops when you started the shelter, but what are the shifts that you're seeing, especially as you say, we don't have enough shelters?
Thank you, Nandi. In the Nelson Mandela Metro, first we were able to reach out to, I forgot the name of the program, but it's SPU in the Nelson Mandela municipality. We were able to reach out to Ms. Tabisa, who had played a big role for us as people who are human rights activists. We were able to her that there is a high need of an inclusive pride in the Nelson Mandela, because we noted past years that most prides that have done, there's been 2 prides in the Nelson Mandela. You'll find there's a pride in town and there's a pride in the location. Then we had said that cannot be happening in our Nelson Mandela. when there was an establishment of the LGBTI sector. The LGBTI sector, then I was part of as the chairperson of the LGBTI sector. We had sat down with different organizations and tabled issues with the Nelson Mandela municipality so that they can start fixing that, because the AIDS Council is the one who's funding these prides. And it cannot be that we allow a situation that the whole metro has two prides and where we can supposed to have one as a whole community, because we are one community, not two communities. Secondly, what we've done, the most important one, is to start in the schools, because most bullyism comes from the schools. And what we've noticed, most suicidal cases come from the schools and most violence comes from the schools. So you need to start where the problem is at, by starting with the young people in the schools in order to sensitize them so that they can learn at a very early young age that inclusion is how society should be about. That a genderless society is possible in our communities, because the moment our kids are taught in schools to discriminate others by the language that is used by teachers, because some teachers will find that they use hate speech when they speak to learners, and learners learn from what they see. Now, we did sensitization for teachers, learners, including their parents, because that is a whole community of the school and the community that can take this back to where the people live. So we start at a micro level to a macro level. We are able to do campaigns where we go to different assemblies where children bring their presentations on how they understand in terms of what bullyism and how to become an ally for an LGBTI learner who is bullied at the school. LGBTI learners also would do their own presentation to state who they are and what acceptance is, because most people who want people to be accepted and to be accepted for who they are. So this is the work that we have done in our Nelson Mandela, that SPU has recognized that there is a need for LGBTI desk in the Nelson Mandela Metro. The Department of Social Development has been sensitized, and social workers have been attending more and more workshops on LGBTI and how to do interventions for the LGBTI community. For us, it is a big thing because we can see different changes. Churches like the Anglican Church in New Brighton have been opening their doors for us to come in and do sensitization for their leaders, including the Methodist Church. So it is very impressive how the movement has come now, that people are able to speak about it. It's no longer something taboo in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Vuyo. Vuyo and Unathi. Vuyo, you already briefly mentioned. Do you have social workers who have mentored you and whose impact on your life encouraged you to be a better social worker today than you were yesterday? We'll start with you, Vuyo, because you said it was a social worker that encouraged you to be a social worker.
I want to mention him by name because most people that come from Kariega, also known as Youth, they know her. Mamunomini Segogo was the first person. Yes, she's from Youth, a place called She. She had then made me to be part of the National Children Rights Committee, a committee that was able to establish the rights of children, the Bill of Rights of Children. I was part of that. The first time I went into a plane, it was due to her because I was part of the children that were picked to go to Joburg to amend the Children's Rights Bill. So when I read the Children's Act that we use today as our Bible as social workers, I become so proud because I know I was part of the children that were doing the Bill of Rights. So Mamunomini Segogo played a huge role because she would have sessions for us on weekends where we come and discuss different rights and their responsibilities. She would unpack and challenge our minds so that we are able to analyze and critically look at issues. Number 2 was Professor Masholo Guguse, who comes from Nelson Mandela University. She has now passed on, but she would say to us, as a community worker, you have a responsibility to look beyond what is in front of you. There's no gray area, but as a community member, you need to be able to advocate for your people that you are working for in that community. She would challenge and say, be an agent of change. That is what you need to be. Don't leave a community without an impact being made. Make by all means to see that impact is there and people have taken ownership of their community. The last person, not the least, was Ms. Soji, also from NMMU, who's now the head of the Department of Social Professions. One thing that I took out from her was never let the person stand in front of the profession. Always find balance between the two. Sometimes we, as professionals, we forget that we are human beings. And sometimes as human beings, we forget that we are professionals. As a worker, you need to find a balance between the two so that you are able to advocate for yourself and for your community. Never be bigger than your community because you are a professional, but never then harden your heart because you're saying that you are a human being. So those are the people that impacted my life to where I am today. Social workers that still continue to teach me in terms of what it means.
We've lost Vuyo, and that's such an amazing story. As she talked about Mam Nominise, I was reminded that I too was mentored by Umam Nominisi through work that I did on child labor with her. So it's such a small world. Unathi, can you please share with us about the social workers who have mentored you?
Thank you so much. For me, when I went to university, I knew what I wanted to do, even if I did not know the course, but I knew that I wanted something to do with people. I want to work with people. Then when I went to the university, then they told me the courses. I said that.
We need to mute somebody. Vuyo, can I ask you to mute yourself? Thank you. Sorry, Unathi.
Then when I was told in the university that these are the courses that are available, those were the nurses and all that, so this is the one that I want to work with, I want to do social work. Then when I arrived here in the department 2006, since then I worked the same office up until now. The people that the supervisors and the whole team, the unique team that welcome, because I think I was the only one who was very, very young, because they were, all of them, they were old. The way they taught me work, the way they taught me how to do counseling, the way they taught me how to present in court, I think I owe to them, all of them, the whole team. I don't have a specific someone that I can say that this one, but the whole team of UTNIC contributed a lot to me to be this social worker that I am today. I will forever be grateful for that. You know, they will tell you that, you know, the files, how to keep the files. The files are the lives of the clients. If you see the file, this brown file, you must know that you are seeing the client that came to ask for assistance from you. Even if the client is not here, but when you see the file, you must be reminded that this file is that person. You know, they will encourage you. You know, sometimes they will be cases that you feel like, this case, I think it's too much for me. Let me make an example, the case of rape. They will give you, they will tell you that, no, you are a social worker. It has been confirmed that you are a social worker. You must deal with each and every case. There's no case that you say that this case I cannot deal with. They gave me that thing, and now it motivated me that whatever case that comes to me, I must be able to deal with that case. If the case, I cannot be able to deal with the case, they always open their offices to consult that this is a case that I'm dealing with. Now I'm here. I don't know how to move further with the case. They will tell you that this is how you handle the case. This is how you approach it. Then when the client comes for the second time, at least now you have strength, you know what is it that you can do. Because what is important that the client, you put the client first and you assist the client to the level that is able to see his or her life changed, is able to stand on his or her own, is able to do things that he never thought he would do because he has met a social worker that was able to assist him or her. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Unathi. We know we're running a bit late, but thank you for staying with us. To all our participants, we are going to be wrapping up soon. We just have a couple more questions for both our icons, and then after that, we will have a we will have a final poll. So if you can just bear with us a little bit longer, we will greatly appreciate that. Vuyo, can you share with us why you feel inclusion is important in a society that often discards those or what is different? Tell me what drives you to be a champion of inclusion.
As a Black community, I will start there because most of the exclusion at times comes from us. I'll speak from where I'm born and from where I live. Most of us were taught by our families, Ubuntu. Ubuntu has no color. Ubuntu has no sexual orientation. Ubuntu says you help a person for who they are. You start where the person is at. I think in order for our community to go back to where we were in terms of our morals, in terms of bringing the integrity back to our community, we start with Ubuntu. If one person can start being helpful to others just because of who they are, you don't look good to they're coming from a rich family. You don't look good to they're coming from a poor family, but you're helping a person because they are a human being. That's what drives me. As long as I'm able to display that I'm a person and I'm a human, and being a human means I'm able to recognize another person as a human being, then I would say that inclusion is important. Then if you're able to say inclusion is important, then you're able not to look at the person because of where they're coming from. We should not be discussing inclusion in our society, but we should be discussing Ubuntu Kuti. Where does it start? It starts in our homes, it goes to our community as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Vuyo. Unathi, what motivates you to be a change agent in your community?
Thank you. What motivates me to be a change agent in my community is to better the lives of the members of the community. Seeing young people struggling with the work, the unemployment, struggling to put food on the table. And what I believe is that there's no problem or challenge that cannot be fixed. What motivates me is that the young person that I see today, the way he is, in 5 years to come, I don't want to see that client, that community member on the same stage. The best way is to work with that person to better his own life. So that at the end of the day, that I was down, but I'm not down anymore. And with that, When he's up there, he'll be able to look for the other people so that he can be able to assist those people. So that you know that even if you're not here, but you have developed other workers that can be able to do the work whilst you are busy with other areas. That what motivates me, that assist the members of the community to better their lives on their own. Because they can do that, but they need you as a social worker or a community agent. They need you to say that this is possible. It can be done. Let's sit together and see and try all the strategies that we can come up with so that the challenge that we are facing can be able to dealt with as the community. So that one day we see a better community, a community that is free from drugs, a community that is free from crime. Because the people that commit all these social ills are within the community. And the people that will be able to eliminate all these social ills are the very same community members. That they need someone to work with them so that we can be able to protect and preserve our beautiful community. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Unathi. This is the final question. It's for both our icons, but we'll start with you, Unathi. I'm sure both of you have stories, amazing stories of young people who've overcome more odds than any of us can imagine. And these stories are what fuel your passion, and they keep you going despite all the challenges that you've shared with us, all the potholes that you meet along the way. Can you each tell me about the story that makes sure that you wake up each morning, every morning when you wake up, you jump out of bed with fire burning in your belly? When you think of that story, you're just like, this is why I do this work. Unathi?
Thank you so much. I once worked as a generic social worker where we were doing foster care. I had a client that he was using substance abuse. He was studying in the high school, but he was using substance abuse. Then the grandma would always come to my office and tell me that, hey, this child is not going to school. This child is using this. Then I sat down with the client. Then I asked him, where do you want to see? Where do you see yourself in 10 years to come? Then the client cried. I said, no, you just tell me where do you want to see? Then he said that I'm seeing myself having a family. Then I asked, do you think with the life that you are living now, will you be able to do that? Will you be able to live the life that you want to live? I said, no, that you need to change. Now I can assist you this far better when you can push yourself beyond. I think it was, I'm not sure whether 3 or 4 before, I think before COVID, someone came to my office, and to be honest, I could not even recognize him. Then I thought it was someone that wanted to assist him. Then we said, you forgot about me. I said, hey, to be honest, yes, I forgot about. I said, I'm that client that came to you. I'm your client who put me on foster care. Hey, I was so amazed. And now I'm a soldier. I've married. I've got 2 children. The way I was so happy that, as I'm saying that there's no challenge, there's no problem that you face that you cannot be able to deal with. Each and every problem, each and every challenge that we face, there's always a solution for that. But we need to come up with strategies. We need to sit down and do introspection that what is it that is wrong that I'm doing? How can I change my situation for better? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Unathi. Vuyo, you, and then we are going to share some of the feedback that's on the chat on Facebook. But Vuyo, please share with us the story of what keeps the fire burning in your belly.
I've got two stories that I'm going to share. First one was of a young white male, age he was, sorry about that. He was found on the streets.
We've lost you again, Vuyo. It's just that your mic is muted. You can come back.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. All right. There was a young male, 24 years old, 24, 25 years old from Utrecht. He was found on the streets in Utrecht. He was living there for a while. He came to the shelter very quiet. We thought everything was fine. We used to call him David Beckham because he looked like David Beckham. All to find out as time passed, he was schizophrenic and he was getting treatment. He became violent in the shelter. Everybody else told me now to take him out of the shelter, but my heart would not allow me. We then made attempts to find a clinic. He was then given his medication. He went back to his medication. But time went by, he then relapsed because he had used drugs. He then went to Doranginza hospital. He was hospitalized for a period of 3 weeks and he came back to the shelter. When he came back to the shelter, we had conversation because I kept on going to Doranginza visiting him. We had conversations in terms of how he wants to change his life. If I could tell you today, if you could see him today, I was shocked to get a friend request.
We've lost you. You can unmute.
Sorry, man. It's the network, guys. Sorry. We then I had a friend request on Facebook, and I saw the name on Facebook, and I accepted because he had then been reunified with his mother and his stepfather. When I saw him, he sent me pictures of where he was working. He has started a job as a truck driver of all things. A truck driver, he's having his own flat. He has started a fresh life for himself. And I had asked him, are you still on drugs? He said, no, I made a decision, a conscious decision when I had conversations with you in terms of what I want to achieve for my life and what he wanted for his family. The next story that I have is of same shelter, a guy we call Ndura at the shelter. Ndura came there as someone who didn't listen. He would run away from the shelter, escape every night. You know those ones. We know that every weekend they are going to run away. For sure, he's going to run away. But I called his sister and I said to him, what it is that you want in your life exactly, in order for you to find stability. Then he had said to me, he wants to make peace with his sister because both parents are deceased and the only family he has was his sister. Then I called his sister and I spoke to her. I mediated so that they can have a relationship again. They set a family conference and the sister forgave him. But she said, I don't want you to come live with me, but I want you to build a life for yourself. The guy, it was a 360-degree change after the family conference. I had said to him, I'm going to put you on probation. I want to see you change and push and believe in yourself that you want to have a better life for yourself. He started washing cars of people coming in the shelter. He started cleaning shoes of people. You know, he would run every time there's people who are bringing donations at the shelter to assist. He collected money to have his own ID. He went and did his ID without me knowing. He brought me his ID when the ID came out and showed me. They used to call me Mama Vuvu. Mama Vuvu, look at my ID. I did this and I got my own ID. It was one of the first person who got a job as an EPWP at the shelter. He was one of the first person in the shelter to get his own flat, to buy his own things with his own money that he didn't steal from anybody. because he would show me his tattoos. He showed me his gun wounds because he used to sell drugs in Costin. There's a place called Costin in the Nelson Mandela. So he would show me all these guys and the tattoos and the meanings behind the tattoos. But when you look at him today, you will never say it's that person that went into the shelter. So the impact that you will see in the people's lives and the change that one makes, that gives us great joy as social workers. It's more than the peanuts that we get for salaries, but the joy that we have to see our clients reaching their self-reliance and being get to self-actualization in order to achieve what they need for their own lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone who stayed with us. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's been so amazing. It just, it speaks to my heart because this is why I do the work that I do within my community and multiple communities that I have worked with over the years. Like Vuyo and Unathi say, it's not just the impact that we make as community workers on the communities that we serve, but it's also the impact that each and everyone that we encounter, how they change our lives as they change their own lives. Simpiwe Nelani says, great stuff. Faithful civil servants, you're doing extraordinary work. I am touched with the kind of work that you're doing. Continue with the strength you are given. As someone involved in the developmental arena, I guess one can partner with you in terms of giving support to your clients who are interested in the agricultural industry. Simpiwe, we do hope that you will share details that we can share with the icons so that they can share with their communities. And then Dudu Matebula, Unathi, your work is really commendable. It is really inspiring. Everyone can do something for their community. And then we have a Facebook comment from Bongani Dosini Ngaba. I don't have a question, but I just want to say big up to my colleagues for the excellent work they do every day. With that, we would like to thank everybody who has stayed with us. It has been a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but we had to give space and acknowledge the work of these two great icons, civil servants who are rank and file, as it was said at the beginning of our webinar. These are people who, as Vuyo says, get paid peanuts, but their passion is what keeps them doing the work that they're doing and making a contribution not only to their communities, but to South Africa as a whole. And we hope that every social worker who is listening or who may come across this webinar can understand what it takes to make a difference in a client's life. Like Vuyo said, you can't separate the human being that you are and the profession that you have chosen. Thank you again for joining us this evening. Can I please ask colleagues to put up our final poll before I hand over and we can close this evening? I think we'll give it another couple of seconds and then we can close. And as we finish with the poll, I'd like to hand over to the Country Director of Accountability Lab, Sikutlane. Thank you for asking me to hold space this evening. And as we close, finally to you so that you can close us out.
Thank you so much, Nandi. And thank you also, Unathi and Vuyokazi. I'm actually on the verge of tears just listening to these stories that you're sharing, listening to your accounts of being in the field and the impact that you are making under the tremendously difficult circumstances that you work within, but with such commitment and such care and such intentionality. I don't think it's lost on any of us on this webinar or in our society, just how austerity is eroding our society amidst all of the other social ills, but the austerity program that we are seeing globally and certainly in our country. We also see how negatively or how badly impacted the caring professions are by these austerity principles and austerity policies. The caring professions, I'm talking about social work, I'm talking about the medical work that's done by our doctors, our nurses, and importantly, our community health facilitators, people on the ground who go out into the villages, remote parts of the country, difficult to access places that our social workers today also have shared about. These are the people who suffer the most because they don't have the resources, they don't have the support that they need, and they also don't have the recognition that they deserve for the immensely important work that they do. So before we leave today, I'd really like for us to really just think about and hold all of these people in our hearts and think about how we can bring ourselves and our whole hearts and our whole selves to be part of a movement to push back against austerity policies and to support the local heroes, especially our rank and file government workers who are working under difficult circumstances. And because they are people, also get irritable, also get frustrated, and sometimes have to just harden their hearts just a little bit in order to be able to get through the next day. I think today we've learned a lot about how much and how deeply our government workers, and especially our social workers, who don't get to see a lot of limelight, who don't get celebrated, whom we've even forgotten exist. We've learned a lot about how deep they have to go into their hearts in order to be able to take people forward in their lives so that they can become self-sufficient, so that they can reunite with their families, so that they can really be part of and be recognized as productive and appreciated members of our society. This work can't happen in an isolated way. It can't happen because there's a social worker, a machine or a cog in a machine called a social worker somewhere doing something. This work has to be done in community. These amazing, wonderful people who hurt, who experience joy, who demonstrate integrity and tremendous leadership in community with all of us to make our communities better places to be in, to make them whole, so that we can all show and feel that we are people through other people. Boto. So I want to thank you, Unathi and Vuyokazi, for being with us this evening. I want to thank you for the work that you do, the light that you shine in our society on a day-to-day basis, doing the little that you do, which is actually a huge amount that makes a tremendous impact. Because this work, you can only do it step by step, moment to moment, day by day, and you show us that all of us can be part of this. So thank you for your contribution, thank you for teaching us today, and thank you for giving us your time. Nandi, thank you also so much for taking us through this conversation. I've learned so much as a result of just your ability to hold space in such a delicate and careful way, to bring the most out of our icons, to enable them to just share just how brilliant they are, to share the impact that they make, and also how you've assisted us to learn from each other through the work and through the lives of these two wonderful people, and also through your own life. So thank you so much for being with us this evening and holding space so delicately for us. I also want to thank our Team SA, who've worked hard to convene this space. This space can't be possible without you. I really appreciate the contribution that you make. And I believe that our icons and even Nandi also appreciates just the time and the care and the contribution you've made to make this space possible. Importantly, I also want to thank the participants who've joined us this evening. Even though we weren't many, I believe that this webinar is really going to live very long, and it's going to gather momentum. And you are here for this moment with us, sharing with us. And we really felt your presence today. So thank you so much for being with us today. And we really encourage you just to share this webinar on Facebook and all your other social media channels that you are on, so that others can join in this wonderful moment, in this wonderful space that has been held for us today. Before we leave, I'd like to maybe just share the results of our poll so you can see what has changed as a result of this conversation between when we started and now when we finish. You can see that there have been a little bit of, some big shifts, in terms of people, being neutral or disagreeing with some of the statements that have been made. And now there's been a shift to the agree side. Everyone is agreeing somewhat because of what they've heard and what they've learned from the direct experiences and the lives of our icons today. So thank you so much. So just as we leave, I'd like to remind all of us again, the Integrity Icon campaign, the nominations period is going to be closing on the 31st of this month. We really want to encourage you all to please everyone knows a public servant. Everyone knows someone who works in government who is doing something really amazing in their community, in our society, to change things, to make government work for the people. We really want to encourage you all to make your nominations for icons in this last week before we close nominations. Please go onto our website, accountabilitylab.org/South-Africa, or go onto integrityicon.org/South-Africa to then just find the nomination form and make your nomination. Otherwise, if you can't remember those handles, just go onto our Twitter, our Facebook, our Instagram. The handle is the same everywhere you go. Account Lab SA, and then you'll find all the information you need in order to make a nomination. We really want to give it a last push. And in so doing, and in closing, I'd like for us just to stay 1 minute longer, no more than a minute, just to share this video, just telling us a little bit about what the Integrity Icon campaign is and how to get involved. So, as we log off today, and with my thanks for you being here today, please just share in the video, see what we're doing here, share it with your colleagues, your community, your friends, your parents, everyone who is around you, and nominate an integrity icon in your community near you. Thank you.
Accountability Lab South Africa is proud to present Integrity Icon, our flagship campaign to name and fame public servants who model integrity, commitment, and taking personal responsibility. Everyone knows a public servant who goes above and beyond the call of duty to make government work for people and contribute to building a responsibly capable state.
The Integrity Icon is a very important initiative. The project seeks to identify those who dare to demonstrate that it's possible to care, it's possible to serve for its own sake.
On the 24th of March, 2022, we launched this year's Integrity Icon campaign and opened the nominations for the public to name and fame public service heroes in their communities. There are a number of ways to nominate your public service heroes through an online Google form, our WhatsApp line, as well as a hard copy. For further information, follow Accountability Lab South Africa's social media accounts.
Thank you and good evening.
Thank you.